Looks like we're going live. Hello and welcome to the I Must Ask You a Question show. I'm Tim Nichols and I am here with Brian Flanagan of the Flanagan Training Group. And Brian is a special guest because a last minute special guest, so he wasn't promoted. Jim Bardwell is my normal co-host. And so if you notice, Brian doesn't have Jim's mustache. So
Yeah, I'm taller.
Jim wasn't feeling well, so Brian thankfully stepped in. Now, Brian is special to us because he is a sales trainer and he worked with the IBM Corporation for 14 years and then turned around and worked for Zig Ziglar for 24 years. And so we are so thankful to have him. Now he's got Flanagan Training Group and he does presentation skills as well as sales training for businesses throughout the nation, actually throughout the world, Brian, right?
Yep, throughout the world. We're trying to reel it back in on the world these days. I'd rather stay Texas-based or nationally, but yeah, we've been fortunate.
That's right. That's right. So Brian and I are talking today about message sent, the dichotomy between your marketing language and your own personal beliefs.
Yeah.
And so, Brian, we were talking about something that you teach in your presentation skills class, and it was a certain phrase you use about the message being received. What was that?
One of the things I like to remind people, the message you send is not always the message received. That has to do with the two-way party, the sender and the receiver. Yet sometimes it's the sender's responsibility and fault. It's not always the receiver's. So we're in control of how we deliver that message. And to your point, Tim, it comes professionally as well as personally.
That's right.
How we deliver that message.
That's right. I think a lot of times right now, especially with, it seems like emotions are seemingly heightened to a new level right now. I think a lot of it's election year, a lot of it's coronavirus, the whole social distancing thing, especially these face masks. You know, people are getting real. They're up to their ears in face masks.
Literally. Yeah. And
I thought you'd appreciate that.
Yeah. I like puns, so thank you. I can use that. I'll steal that.
There you go. There you go. So, you know, and I think even the face mask thing, I think it has created some raw emotion, even in what people share on social media. Their perceptions of what is being said by others. You know, I want to say we listen with a tender ear. Does that make sense?
And if you can use this, it's a horrible example, but with an emotional ear, we're listening for sensitivities, which we should always do. But as you said, in this day and age, it's heightened. Everything is on the surface. Everybody's emotions on the surface. And in this woke society we live in, you got to be very careful. Let me give you an example. I work with a great company here in Dallas, and on their website, they posted a celebration of an anniversary that they've had as a company. And somebody posted back, "Nice COVID party," meaning they really weren't separating their 6 feet, their social distancing. And they got a little bit of a tap on their shoulder saying, be careful. So they were trying to celebrate with their people in their office, and they've got a wand. I've been in their office, and they've got a wand and make sure everybody is in temperature standards. And it was a good upbeat, but at the same time, somebody took offense and said, you're really not following the guidelines. What do you do?
Isn't it interesting how everyone has become social police over guidelines, you know, and granted, some people are really fearful about getting coronavirus and as well, they should be. I mean, I believe that the virus is serious, but at the same time, if the mask works, then we don't have to be so heavy on the social distancing. But, you know, if you're social distancing, then you don't have to be so heavy on the mask, right? And to see people on video getting arrested at football games for sitting by themselves without a mask on, I think that escalates that sensitivity to what we're hearing, especially on social media. And I think there's a sense of fairness or justice, or people feel like, well, that's not fair. If they can have a party, why can't we?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
If everybody's individual judgment, and what's happening is that some states, because the flyover states, Wyoming, Idaho, et cetera, they've social distanced for years because there's not a lot of population up there. Right. And now they're being asked to do something, whereas the urban cities, you kind of understand it, but in the spread out in the rural areas, there is a little bit of an independence. They want to be there because they're independent people, and don't tell me what to do when it becomes that personal. If they had some common sense, some of this would be relieved, but there's not a lot of common sense going on right now.
That's right. That's right. You know, it's funny. I was talking to a business owner in Boston the other day, and, you know, they were asking about what the acceptance level was of the whole mask and social distancing thing and all that. And I said, well, Texans are known for their independence, and they aren't taking it lightly. You know, to them, that's a massive offense. And she said, well, imagine living in a state where our motto is live free or die.
Yeah. Well spoken. Point well taken.
I was like, I get that. I understand that. And so it's been, I think everyone has a different feel for what's going on. Listeners, if you will, share your comments, ask questions about what may be proper, or where you could go to kind of bounce ideas off of what message you're sending, or any ideas according to that. So feel free to ask us questions. I mean, we've got Brian Flanagan on, so please feel free to ask. Let's get into our topics here. So let's talk about, what message are you sending? Yeah. Right. If we're looking at the difference between marketing language versus personal branding, when do you make that distinction? Any ideas on that, Brian?
Well, yes. One of the things that I cling to, because in the olden days, back before March 13th was my last outside of the world engagement, one of the things that I've always worried about is that in my playfulness, I may cross the line. I don't mean to. I'm playful. I'm not vindictive. I'm not trying to make fun. I'm trying to have fun. So my tagline, Tim, the intent behind your technique determines your ethics. The intent behind your techniques. So as a sales professional, what I try to understand and teach, Tim, if I'm selling to you, in my heart of hearts, I know that my product is a good fit for your needs, then any of the techniques I use should be professional, should be ethical. I have to do it maturely and professionally, but you've got this need and I know that we'll solve it for you. Well, that's an ethical interaction. However, if you have this need and I've got this solution and it's not a good fit, I've got to stop selling until I know that it's a better fit. So my point is, the intent behind your technique determines your ethics. If you say something, if you put something on, you share a Facebook posting, your intent is to have fun and to kind of smile at it.
Right.
You're not vindictive. You're not trying to make fun of an unrecognized group, an unresourced group. It's funny. Now, again, the catchphrase there is in your heart of hearts. You've got to have a pureness there that is not trying to offend someone. But it's amazing. I've had different people say at different times about other speakers and trainers and about people posting. Well, it's a joke. I sent out something, this is many years ago. I sent out, my dentist had a non-soliciting poster sign on the side of his building. And it's got a man in a briefcase and a line through it saying, no solicitors. And so I took a picture of that and I posted it on LinkedIn. And I said, salespeople, when we see this, We love it, man. That's our challenge. We get adrenaline pumping. We want to charge in there. And then I stopped. And I got a buddy of mine in Louisiana that said, I can't believe you said that. If I asked you not to solicit and you came in my office, I'd take a shotgun to you. And I wrote back and I said, Bill, it's a joke.
Yeah.
Caught on. He wrote back and said, yeah, I kind of took it too seriously. But he had to have a second or third thought about it. Well, maybe I should have said in there in retrospect, it's a joke. Isn't this funny? But I didn't because I thought everybody knew. The intent was not to say I'm going to barge in. I've never been thrown out of somebody's office. I'm not that kind of salesperson. But this guy took it and it went a step over. I got no control over that.
Right.
The intent wasn't to make fun of him or to challenge him. It was a joke. And I think so many people are sensitive that I got in trouble over it. I apologized to him. He wrote back and, okay, I'll see it now. But again, it goes back to your intent.
I think it's almost like a lot of people have lost their sense of humor because that sensitivity is so escalated right now. And it's funny.
Comedians won't go to college campuses because it's too PC.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought up the no solicitor thing. When I was having to go door knock businesses as a financial advisor, I would tell them if they said no solicitors, I said, good, tell me if you see one because I don't want to talk to them either.
That's a good way around it. Yeah. There was back in 2018, I guess, I'm going to tell this story. This came from a buddy of mine who was recruiting people. And there was a young lady who was getting out of college and she was sending her resumes out. And of course, as all resumes, they were formally done and they'd gone to resume writing class. But then her return email, of course, she hasn't had a job. She's been in college. Her return email was her personal email address, whether it was Yahoo or Gmail or I don't know what it was. But here's what her tagline was. Her address was sexy 2018, and she included that on the resume. Well, that was obvious an oversight on her part.
Yeah.
It didn't make her look good to anybody because, first of all, attention to detail. So be careful with what you're putting out there. Take one more breath before you press the send button. Proofread one more time before you send it out.
That's exactly right. And I think, we were talking about this before the call, how sometimes you'll go to make a comment or go to make a post and you rethink it, right? You're like, you know what? I might ought to just send a picture instead.
I don't know.
And sometimes
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I couldn't hear you. What did you say?
I said, I'm not sure what time of the year this was, but sometime in 2020, a buddy of mine had posted a picture when the wind was blowing outside of an American flag and then a Texas flag. And I think there was probably like a Holiday Inn or something, a Hilton hotel. Anyway, the three flags, this is out of Houston. And he posted it. And he said something about America strong, Texas proud, Hilton frequent flyer, whatever it is. Hilton's honor member.
Yeah.
And he had feedback on that. Somebody said, be careful of posting that conservative photo. Now, wait a minute. That's not my buddy's problem.
Yeah.
Somebody had a chip on his shoulder and he came back with that. There were three flags. Everybody's proud to be a Texan. Hello. Everybody's proud of America. Hello. Hilton was where he was staying. It wasn't a political statement he was making. So you never know.
It almost seems like everybody thinks you're making a political statement no matter what you post.
Yeah. So your banner there, what message are you sending? You're sending, hey, I'm in Houston having a great time. It's a nice day. The wind's blowing. The flag's on furl, man. They're flagging. It's wonderful. And boom, somebody comes along and says, be careful. Of what? So it's pretty amazing what you can get caught up in.
Yeah.
But again, the intent was not to make a political statement.
Right. And yeah, and I don't know if you're like this, but I feel like I'm really learning who people are by their personal brand over what they're saying in their professional message.
I think there's a lot of contradictions, Be careful. I'm not sure you want to have, and if you're in a job market, I'm not sure you want to have a lot of pictures of you partying when it's daylight and it may look like a Wednesday outside because I'm not sure I want to hire a Wednesday drinker during the daylight hours. But there's all kind of things that we're contradicting ourselves on. And it's not meant to be that way, but I would have a bit better judgment on how you use your Facebook when you know that an employer could look on Facebook and check you out. So
that's exactly right.
Need to be aware.
Yeah, even on LinkedIn, so how do you determine which message you send? And a lot of, let's say a lot of the people that watch this show, most of them are business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals, but let's even look at this from we'll get into the employee part later, but how do you determine which message you send? Some people they feel like they're being statesmen, right, by the stand that they're taking, but then again, it conflicts with their marketing message. And so I guess what is your answer to that question then?
I'm not sure that I want my personal brand to be that opposed to my professional brand. I think that it's more of a line that I am. I think I'm playful as an individual, but I'm also playful on sales calls, not to the point where I'm trying to entertain the client, but I am trying to make it fun. I mean, if you're not having fun in business, go find something to do, especially in my world of selling, because if you can't laugh at yourself as a sales professional, that's a long 8 hours. I'm sorry, Tim, a long 4 hours. and so I think your personal brand should be closer to your professional brand. Again, party animals and those kind of people, maybe they're trying to make an impact in the social world and their social media friends, but they fail to realize that the camera's on you 24/7. You can't escape people noticing you. Zig Ziglar tells a great story about presenting in Kansas City to an auditorium, an assembly of high schoolers. The local the local television station was going to cover it. So they came back they had the shoulder cameras and some lights on Zig, and they were in the back of the room, the camera people were. And then when the camera person with a handheld camera moved behind Zig noticed all the kids were getting proper. And Zig looked over and made a statement. He said, "Now, you young people, understand the camera's always on. You may not see the camera, but you're being noticed when you're out. So you don't have to do that. You better do that all the time." And I thought that was a pretty penetrating question. How often do you have to be prim and proper? Who knows?
That's right.
Somebody's always watching.
This reminds me of, I'm going to bring up Nike, and I understand that for sensitive ears, that might be tough, but let's go back to Michael Jordan. So whenever the Jordan shoes came out and Nike was sponsoring him, and he was probably at the height of his career, ESPN asked Michael Jordan, well, who are you going to vote for? And his response was, Republicans buy my shoes just as much as Democrats do. So I wouldn't dare put myself in that position to do away with half of my market. Whereas, boy, Nike really changed its tune by leaving their professional message to pursue a personal belief set, right? Therefore, they have probably cut off about half of their market, I would think. Now, I don't know their numbers, but that just is perception for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that he was trying to protect his brand, protect the Nike brand, perhaps. But I think you can separate it. And I think as a celebrity, it's okay to separate it. You've seen the Tom Selleck and Rosie O'Donnell conflict when he wanted to talk about his movie, and she wanted to talk about being a spokesperson for the NRA. And he tried to say, I'm really here to promote a movie. But she wouldn't let him go. Now, look, I know it works conservatives toward the other way, too. I'm not picking on Rosie. But Tom Selleck was there for one reason, and she had her own agenda. And to his credit, he said, I'm not really here for that. And that's the best way to handle it. Now, the other person has to have a little give in there. And she kind of hammered him on it a little bit longer. But he handled it well. I'm not sure. I think that he came out more of a hero than she did on that one because she was pushing her agenda.
Right.
And
right.
It's okay. We should be able to give people grace on not pushing your agenda. And if it's not a business, then let's take it offline. Let's go have a cup of coffee and have a logical, not necessarily an emotional discussion on this issue. Glad to talk about it, just not in this venue.
Well, going back to what you had said about the cameras always being on, to me, that brings up the whole social media aspect, right?
Of course, more so now than ever.
Yeah. And frankly, not that I didn't do a whole lot of crazy things through high school and college, but I'm so thankful that there was not a camera or a video, someone videoing everything that I did, because I'm sure I did some stupid stuff, right? But
don't look in my closet. Don't look at my negatives.
But I think it's important, if you want to take that stand, that you have a distinct line between who sees what, right? And where you're promoting what. Yeah.
Well, and Zig Ziglar is both our heroes. Obviously, we met I met Heather, then you through the Ziglar Corporation at Seminar. But Zig would take a stand, but he would base it on several things. It wasn't a feeling alone. He ran things through the logical side, through the spiritual side, through the mental side. He took a stand and he would give reasons that he thought this, as opposed to the emotion. Now, whether you liked his stand or not, you understood through the evidence that he presented of why he had that opinion. And that's what I think we've lost it's all about me, whether it be here or there, whatever side of the aisle you're on. And it's not about the evidence or the facts. And we have that sensitivity that leads to no logical discussions. And it also leads, when we're talking about here specifically, that something comes across the social media and you brand this person, the bad branding, for his social brand or his personal brand, and therefore you want nothing to do with his professional brand.
Right. I think that happens quite a bit.
And I'll use my example. So like you said, to sensitive ears, I appreciate what you said earlier, to sensitive ears. I think you should, my personal belief is I think you should go to a Christian doctor, but only if he's any good.
All right.
So it doesn't matter if I'm 23 years old trying to serve, let's just say Nike, because I'm calling on Nike. I just got out of school. I'm 23 years old. And somebody says, well, you're youth. I'm not sure you may be too young to cover a large corporation like us. Mm-hmm. Well, I want to ask the question, how old do I need to be? If I've got a solution for you and it meets your needs, how old do I need to be to present it to you?
Right.
Now, I'm going to try to overcome that objection somehow, but we're getting that. I mean, I've had that asked me when I started my career 100 years ago, and I'm sure a lot of young people having that question asked to them. But it's got to be, let's base it on evidence. The fact that I'm young, but I have a work ethic, I got a desire, a drive, a creativity, and I got a product that solves your needs. Why would you go to somebody that's 10 years old? Or if I can use the social term, well, I really identify as a 43-year-old.
Right.
I'm not sure you can use that.
Right. Yeah. It's funny how we probably identify a lot younger, right?
Yeah. So let's take a look at this question.
So I brought up another question. What's a good way to ensure that you're sending the right message?
I think it starts with intent, but also you need to get feedback. if you're really messaging, not just a off the cuff post, but if you're really messaging, you may want to find some heads in the huddle that would allow you to ask people, what do you think? Before I send this out, let me send it to you. What do you see that I didn't see in my blog, in my photograph? I think you need to get other heads in the huddle to give you an objective view.
I agree with that. I've got a group that I try to pass my wording, my marketing language through, to make sure that I'm sending a message that they will receive the way I want it received, like what you were saying with your presentation skills class.
Yeah. And that's not easy. I think it's a good question. I'm not sure we've answered it, but how do you ensure? I'm not sure you 100% do that anymore. I've been in situations where someone said something from the front of the room and somebody questioned them on it. And everybody else looked around like, I didn't get that at all. That went by me. Well, there was a personal issue that this person had with the presenter, and nobody else has that, nor saw it, nor felt it. And it was a little bit, we thought it was rude. It was a little bit rude for that person to bring it up, since that person was the only one in the room of, there were probably 15 people that felt that. Everybody else missed it.
Huh.
And then when it was explained, we still don't get it. So sometimes you don't want to possess a problem you shouldn't possess. Some people possess a problem. As Zig would say, they're finding fault as if they were a reward for it.
Right. Well, and I think your analogy just then brings up a very good illustration for us. The further you are away from the speaker speaking the message on a personal or belief level, the more chances of it being misconstrued. So you said the person was at the back of the room, but everyone else between didn't get that because they were probably close enough to see micro expressions or expressions in general.
Yeah. A wink, a smile, a grin. Sure. Yeah.
And really, that kind of brings up something else. The importance of even video messaging now. Video messaging to me has become so much more important than even the written, because it's easy to mistake the written, right? It's easier because it's further away from the speaker.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. The closer you are face to face, the more results you have in building relationships and solving problems. And we have a communication problem aggravated by email, because it's amazing what you can say. I did not say he stole her money versus I did not say he stole her money. I did not say he stole the money. There's no inflections and there's no expressions. You can't see the person winking his eye or raising an eyebrow or smiling. And that's what you've got to be careful of, because emails, if they can be misunderstood, they will be misunderstood.
Now, you and I were discussing earlier a possible, I'm going to say, adjustment for that, about the whole video messaging thing. What was your take on that?
Now, in what regard?
Video email.
Well, I like video email because I think it does make a personal attempt, and it's more of a connection. I think it's more of a relationship builder, and people are doing more and more of that these days, and I need to do more of it. I also think it personalizes, and if you can use somebody's name in it, they know it's not a generic. And I just think that bonds you faster to people, and there are fewer misunderstandings because you can see and hear. I'm taking in, the statistics 7, 38, and 55% don't apply to all communication, Tim. They only apply to face when we're talking feelings and attitudes.
Okay.
7% of feelings and attitudes are words, 38% of feelings and attitudes voice, and 55% is nonverbal. But it's when we're communicating feelings and attitudes. So if I'm talking about a schematic, if I'm talking about a protocol or procedure, those three statistics don't apply because it's not emotion, it's logic. But if you're trying to connect with somebody, if you're calling somebody to take action, those three statistics play a vital role in how well you convey your meaning. So obviously, the closer you are to the physical side, seeing somebody, especially in the case of feelings and attitudes, the better off you are. That's why video is so important.
Well, and another reason I think it's important too is because it seems like there's almost, just like we talked about escalated sensitivity, there's also I'm going to say an escalated sense of desperation in sales language. I've picked up on it from several, and then you've got all of these marketers out there that are really promoting different avenues. And, I've seen it a whole lot in LinkedIn let's say, there are some LinkedIn coaches out there that are telling people to send a sales message when you're trying to connect with people on LinkedIn. So instead of, hey, Tim, I'm so-and-so, I'd like to build a relationship with you, they're like, hey, I've got something that can increase your sales by 50%. Let's talk about this over coffee this week, and it's like, I don't even respond, and so I think with the video messaging thing, it changes the language, but also they can see my sincerity, my authenticity in my face and actions, and hear it in my voice, right? Like you said, conveying the feelings and emotions. So, and I like to use Dub Video on that because it even has access for them to respond with email or even the emoticons or something like that. I'll make, and for you listeners, I'll make sure I include the link in there if you want to take a look at that. But and Heather, my wife, is a digital marketer, and she actually turned me on to that and how important that is right now, as opposed to just written emails, because I think people are just sick of reading emails.
Yeah. Well, and it's been proven that videos are opened and viewed more and longer than just the written emails. Yeah.
Right. Well, and with everyone working from home and not having the ability to be out in person, it feels like that whole email, the use of email has just skyrocketed.
Yeah, very much. Huh. So there's a different way, and it's a little bit more personal. It's a lot more personalized. It takes a little longer to do, so more thought went into it. The dub you sent me after our meeting a couple of weeks ago was short, sweet, to the point. I was impressed.
Yeah, I really think that's
an email.
Yeah, that's a coming thing, I feel like, and it's growing in popularity. I really think it probably ought to grow a little bit more. I'd rather see you tell me what you have to tell me than just try to judge your inflection by the written word.
Read it or off of a voicemail. I mean, you're getting all the impact, all the sensory impact off of that.
Yeah.
We're some of my clients, not all, a few of my clients are getting this request when they're contacting clients to serve their prospects, I guess, to serve those prospects. And one of the questions is, do our values align? And that's interesting because with the, I guess, again, I use the term woke because that's what everybody's using. And also in the cancellation culture, you got to be careful what message you're putting out there. So let's go back to my buddy who had the anniversary celebration of their 10th year in business, and they're celebrating at their office. Everybody walks in and gets temperature checked, and so far they were safe, but they weren't social distancing, but it was on their website. And now we're getting people that are asking companies, do our values align? Well, I don't know, because I don't know your values. I see your mission statement on your website. I see some of the things that you said you value and your missions are. We have mission statements. But I want to ask the question, and what are you talking about? Help me understand what you mean by values. Are you talking political values, We talking individual values? What are we talking about? And one of the things I loved working for the IBM Corporation before all of this stuff hit, because I started with IBM 50 years ago. But the number one, there were three basic concepts of the IBM Corporation when I was there from 70 to 84. And number one was respect for the individual. And I always embraced that. Respect for the individual, perform your job in a manner of excellence, and deliver world-class customer service. But it was respect for the individual that was the core belief of the IBM Corporation. Well, I don't think IBM has veered from that since I've left. But certainly in the political climate that's happened with all over the world, IBM meaning international business machines, I guess there was some, and I'd left by then, there were probably some political shots. Why are you still doing business in, let's just pick China? Why are you still doing business in South Africa? Back when all this was happening back in the day. But because of the core belief that I saw the company live, respect for the individual, I was very comfortable with working for IBM. My dad worked for 33 years for Exxon. My gosh, Exxon, what a great corporate citizen, Exxon. And at the time it was Esso, but Exxon was for the Baton Rouge community. They had health care for the survivors. And my dad died at 58. My mother used Stanicola Medical in Baton Rouge for her health care. What a great service. And did they drop some oil, a whole bunch in Alaska? You bet. Are they a bad company because of that? Well, I asked my mother, and she was very high. She'd be very positive about what Esso has done for her, Exxon has done for her and my family. So there's good and bad, and you can't be a cure-all for everything. But my values are integrity, innovation, creativity, and building people. I don't want to go political on it, but some people are being drawn into it. How is your climate change attitude? How is your diversity, your inclusion? Those are valid. But does it mean that I can do a better job or a worse job? And once again, whether you agree with my political statement or not, I want to go to a doctor who's good, whether you agree with it, doesn't agree with it. I want somebody to cure my cancer. I want somebody to treat me. And if I'm only going after the people that align on my political views, I'm chopping out a whole lot of people that could be helping me. And I think that's what companies are going to have to view in the future. But I think it's out of line right now.
Yep.
My way or the highway, if you don't believe in this political cause, well, I believe in all the others. What if I don't believe in just one? I'm against you. I think that's what's happening.
I agree completely on that, and I hate to see it. I think that line in the sand is actually going to cause a lot of businesses to lose enough clients or product sales or something like that to do away with them, right? To make them disappear. And granted, some of the larger companies feel like, well, I don't have to have that part of the population anyway.
Yeah, that's not their market. But look, when we were working for Ziegler, I would go into places, and the guy in Cincinnati told me right out, "You're not going to talk about Jesus, are you?" Well, do you want me to? Oh, no, I won't. Now, I've got other guys, Tim, I've had this. Brian, spiritually, we're not good. We're bitter. We're gossiping. If you could weave some scripture into this thing. So we have two lines of thought there. But I respect somebody that says, look, leave the biblical quotes out. Well, I got other things I could put in place of biblical quotes and get the message. But if he doesn't say that, I'll ask, hey, if I sprinkle in a couple, are you okay with that? I don't mind asking that question prior to the start of the program. But we also have people come up and say, yeah, we kind of need a little spiritual boost.
Right.
And you want to cater those people, and the same, you want to cater the ones that said, just talk business.
Yeah. It's interesting.
It's changing dynamics since I've been in the business.
I missed that last part.
It's a changing dynamic in the 36 years I've been in this business.
Yeah. And something that I think about, and kind of why I brought this whole topic up, is that it's a dichotomy right? But my thought is study me. If you really want to know what I think about things, I may not be talking about it all the time, but I have a history, just like politicians have a voting history. Mm-hmm. I have a history now built into social media, and you can go and look at everything I believe. And I am pretty clear about how I live as to what I believe. And I may not say it all the time because I don't want to create contradictions in my marketing message. But I think our message comes across in how we're living. And that really is our personal message that we want to deliver. That's our message we want sent on our personal belief side. But we can talk about product.
But you're telling me, Tim, your personal branding and your professional branding are close.
Yes.
They're not spread. And I think that's the best messaging. Mother Teresa said, preach the gospel and sometimes use words. I mean, so if you're living your message, and go to my track record, look at my track record. I think that's a valid point.
So I guess what that boils down to is how we live and how we portray ourselves in public is our message sent.
Yeah, I want to be held accountable to what I teach. I don't want to be held accountable to making you feel good. I want to be held accountable to giving you the skills to move forward in your life. That's what I want to be held accountable for. And if I'm making a sales call on you and I use what I teach, then I think we're in alignment. But if I don't use what I teach, you shouldn't buy my brand because I'm not being true to what I teach. And that's right. Again, I talk about Zig a lot. I apologize for that for the non-Zig fans. But Zig was the most consistent man I've ever met. And I say that because I'm not that consistent, and I know it. So some of the things I teach, some of the things he taught, I saw him live. Some of the things, if I taught that, I don't live that enough to feel comfortable that I'm giving you value. So that's something I don't teach. You don't want to learn time management from me. Because if I live it, I'll give it if I live it, but I don't live time management. So There's somebody better out there on time management than I am. But Zig was the one that had a personal brand, and his professional brand was so aligned.
They were aligned.
And there are other guys like that. I think Roger Staubach, we're in Dallas, and Roger Staubach was like that. I think Tom Landry was like that. There are people like that, but I just happen to be around Zig a lot and saw him live it and act it and communicate it to the point that I'm holding him higher esteem.
I agree with that. And of course, he carried a lot of weight because of that alignment, I feel like.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Brian, I don't know what else we can add to this subject. I think we've covered it quite well.
Let me give you a last story here. Back in 1980, I guess 86, 87, 88, sometime up in there. I was in Chicago and I was making a presentation. It was a 3-hour presentation. And then we took a break an hour and a half into it. And a lady came up to me and said, now she was an older lady. She wasn't a young girl. She was probably in her 40s or 50s. And she said, I hate to tell you this, but I've got to leave. And I said, are you okay? Can we get something for you? Do you need me to contact the meeting planner? She said, no, I got to leave. I can't listen to you. I said, what did I do? And she said, you remind me of George Bush. Now, this is President 41, George H.W. And she said, you remind me of George Bush, and I hate George Bush. And she left. Well, what do I apologize for that? Do I say I'll stop talking? I didn't know what I was doing to remind her of George Bush. So the point is, my brand is not bought by everybody. But I work on my brand. Not everybody's going to buy my brand.
That's right. You could have said, I'm not going to leave. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
But I didn't do any of those things. I apologized to her. I didn't know how. Blame it on mom and dad. They're genes. I'm sorry.
Great story.
You can't please them all the time.
That's right. That is so true. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Brian. And I hope that you've really got an idea of the message you're sending and what words you use and the aspects in which you use them. So I encourage you to get feedback on messages you send, especially on the dichotomy between your professional brand and your personal brand and the alignment thereof. So thanks for joining us, and click the learn more for the free book offer. Actually, I've got a free webinar, and keep the conversation going in the comments, and join us next Monday for the I Must Ask You a Question show. We'll see you soon.